I can still remember how excited people were when Barack Obama became the president of the United States. My family in particular didn't believe he was going to win, but there was this raw excitement about his run anyway. A black guy had never been in the highest office of our country before. Surely this would do away with the decades of suppression of black people in the US, right? Well, not really. Elections came and went, and the problem was still there. Racially targeted shootings came out more and more. When Bush had us in 2 wars, Barack Obama moved us to 7, many of which targeting poorer African nations, and black communities still did not recover from years of systemically targeted poverty. Whether it be Reagan funneling drugs into black communities or schools being forced to pass kids who didn't even understand the academic material just in order to receive funding as a school in a poor and black district, or for-profit prisons locking up black people at a disproportionate rate, often for unjust and unprovable causes. These facts of life as a low-income minority were not alleviated. It didn't matter what color the president was, because a lower-class black person fundamentally is not going to relate to the experiences of a rich black person. Liberal policies seeking to correct the past based on an identity-oriented reformist basis only serve to diversify the capitalist class racially. They do not, however, address the innate discrimination towards poor black Americans or poor people in general within the capitalist system. I always come back to this quote from Stokely Carmichael. Quote, "Racism is not a question of attitude, it's a question of power. Racism gets its power from capitalism. Thus, if you're anti-racist, whether you know it or not, you must be anti-capitalist." I believe this quote speaks to something very fundamental within Marxist theory, the idea of how power influences society. Obviously, if power is concentrated within the hands of a few capitalists, who ultimately govern the media and politicians within your country, the question of how racism will be eliminated is not up to the class being oppressed. It's up to a comparably small group of individuals. Socialism is about empowering the working man at the political level, for all men and women to not only participate in the election of the state's officials and subsequently the responsibility to recall those officials at any time, it is also the participation in the democracy of your workplace, for all able-bodied people to govern the society they live in one way or another. This is the core of a worker state, to centralize the power into the society rather than to have the society controlled by a small group of individuals. If the society is therefore controlled on an economic and social level by the individuals who make up society, then their resources serve to feed and house all of its members. You don't have poor black folks anymore because those people weren't left behind by the capitalist class who has enough power to single them out. Instead, the society assumes power. The society allocates the resources not based on the irrationality of the market or the dictatorship of the bourgeoisie, but based upon the needs of human beings. If we want to fight for racial liberation, for the liberation of all people, we need to be fighting for economic liberation. Liberal reformism is not going to do that. The same can be said of LGBT issues. Who is the most progressive country on LGBT issues in Latin America? The socialist worker state of Cuba. In 2008, the Cuban government began subsidizing gender reassignment surgery for transgender people. We still don't have universal healthcare in my country, let alone free gender reassignment surgeries for people experiencing gender dysphoria. Given the abundance of suicides committed by transgender people, I can only imagine the amount of relief this brought to the community inside of Cuba. They have, as well, been making a number of sweeping reforms in order to protect homosexuals homosexual people since the 1980s. Compare this to Trinidad and Tobago, which only last year decriminalized homosexuality. A scientific ideology, a working class culture built on education and the continued development of your nation is the ideology that will most effectively liberate LGBTQ people. This is what happens when you put human beings and scientific progress first. Your policy is going to reflect those two factors. Instead of relying on liberal opportunism and splitting parties on how to tackle the subject of racial and gender identity, we should be looking to Cuba to liberate our people economically, and only then can our liberation socially come as well. This is what we mean when we say we've got to be taking anti-Idpol action. For as many murders as the capitalist class emits per drug addiction per suicide, the minorities that make up these communities get louder. Instead of yelling in the ears of our potential comrades about the gender spectrum or the suppression of black people, we need to be yelling in the ears of the people who caused this in the first place. Anti-Idpol action is anti-capitalist action. It's anti-liberal, anti-reformist. It's not about our overlords allowing us freedoms that they have the power to take away at any time. It's about putting the power in the hands of the people, so overlords never have to exist in the first place. The workers of the world do not have a race or gender. These are mere abstractions used to divide us. As Comrade Lenin said, capital is an international force. To vanquish it, an international workers' alliance, an international workers' brotherhood is needed. We are opposed to national enmity and discord, to national exclusiveness. We are internationalists. And so is anti-Idpol action. I've been your host, Star, and I'll see you in the next one.
お前はここへ死にに来たのさ、ドクターヒルルク。
なぜここへ？
守備隊、構え！
なんだよ。よかった。病人はいねえのか。おらてっきり国の一大事かと。なんだ、俺が騙されただけか。
本当に一大事なら貴様になど来てほしゅうないわ。構うな、処刑しろ。
やめておけ。お前らには俺は殺せねえよ。よう、人はいつ死ぬと思う？心臓をピストルで撃ち抜かれた時？違う。不治の病に侵された時？違う。猛毒キノコのスープを飲んだ時？違う。人に忘れられた時さ。俺が消えても俺の夢は叶う。病んだ国民の心もきっと救えるさ。なぜに泣く？ドルトン
国も同じだろうか。
受け継ぐ者がいりゃあな。
おいおいドルトン、てめえ何泣いてやがる。まあ
もうすぐここに化け物がやってくる。俺の息子だ。手出すなよ。安心しろチョッパー。お前のキノコじゃ俺は死なねえ。まったくいい人生だった。
阿爸有也不像。
ありがとよチョッパー。